Whether you live in the city or out in the country, many of us find ourselves sharing space with wildlife. But how can humans best coexist with our neighbors nestled in the woods? On this episode of the Paw Report, we're joined by the University of Illinois' Wildlife Medical Director, Dr. Stephany Lewis, to answer that question and more. Stay with us.
The Castle in Mattoon, Illinois, a gaming bar serving the Mattoon area since 1929. Full bar, draft beer, allocated bourbons, rotating daily specials, APA pool leagues, darts, and more. Monthly craft cocktail nights, open mic nights, and karaoke weekly. The Castle's lineup of concerts and events are on their Facebook.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report. We are not in the studios at our Charleston location on the campus of Eastern Illinois University. We have packed up and we are back at the University of Illinois at the Wildlife Clinic. And we're so excited to be back here with our animal ambassadors, and also a relatively new director of the clinic is Dr. Stephany Lewis. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Paw Report and inviting us to your beautiful facility.
No problem. Yeah, happy to have you guys here.
You know, I will say that we are filming in the middle of June for this episode. A little noisy here on the campus. Lots of bustling activity at the University of Illinois. Some construction work going on. They're building a new unit at the veterinary college behind us, and so hopefully our viewers will be understanding of that. So you're new to the program, and as we always do, we put you on the spot. Let us into the background of you and your journey to the U of I and the clinic here.
Yeah, so I have been here since June of 2023, but I started working in wildlife rehabilitation in 2009. So that was when I was an undergraduate student and got involved at a local rehab center where I lived in New Jersey. And at the time, I actually wanted to be an equine vet. You know, I wanted to treat horses and large animal. That's what I wanted to do for basically my entire life. And I just fell in love with the work of wildlife rehabilitation and the mission and you know, sometimes most of all the people that work in wildlife rehabilitation, because you know none of them are doing it for the glamour and the wealth, and you know we're treating you know, squirrels and rabbits and songbirds and turtles and things like that, and so and we're doing it really to help the animals that are negatively affected sometimes by human activity. So it's just a mission that really spoke to me and really drove my journey forward from that. And so I went to veterinary school at Tufts University in Massachusetts, and we also had a strong wildlife rehabilitation program there. So similar to University of Illinois, we had a wildlife clinic on campus that I could be involved with all 4 years of vet school. And then I also did a lot of externships at other wildlife rehabilitation centers before, during, after veterinary school. And after veterinary school, I did a rotating internship at Michigan State, and then I actually returned to Tufts for a year for a wildlife medicine internship. That was an intensive year-long internship in wildlife rehabilitation, similar to what we do here. And so after that, I actually was in California for about 5 years. So in Southern California, I worked at a rehab center in Malibu and another one that's a little bit south of Santa Barbara, and was the veterinarian for both of those centers, for California Wildlife Center and Ojai Raptor Center. And so I saw everything from hummingbirds to elephant seals that were pups that weighed more than I did, and the occasional dolphin and occasional small whale and things like that. So it was a cool variety, a fun variety of wildlife to work with. But I really loved working with students, and I would get student externs, like veterinary students that were interested in wildlife, that would rotate through and come work with me for a few weeks at a time. But I always wanted to return to a veterinary school and work full-time with students, and you know, they're such a passionate group of people, and they love what they do, and they get really excited to learn new things and see, you know, learn things about wildlife. And so when this position opened up, I really jumped at it and was excited to move to Illinois.
Oh, we can feel
Southern
your
California.
passion. You exude the passion for your job. Today we're talking about, and you kind of hit on it, a harmonious balance between humans and wildlife. And why is that important? I mean, we need wildlife.
For sure. So, you know, we teach our students a lot about the One Health principles, and so the you know, basis behind the One Health, you know, movement that has been gotten a lot more attention from the scientific community and a lot of governments in the past, you know, probably several years to a couple decades, is that there's a strong interconnection between human health, animal health, and environmental health and wildlife health. And so if any of these three things collapse, it affects all the other ones, right? And so for just in our own benefit and our own well-being, it's really important that we have strong environmental health and that we take care of our planet and our wildlife. You know, a lot of diseases that can affect humans, a lot of those can come from wildlife. So if our wildlife aren't healthy, it can impact our well-being and our health, our agricultural health, as well as our domestic animal health.
You know, whether you live in the city or whether you live in the country, I live in the country, we're surrounded by wildlife. And people are like, in the city, no, we don't have what you have out in the country. Yeah, you do. Yeah. So it's important to get to know our wildlife neighbors. What kind of animals are among us?
Yeah, so a lot of the animals that you see most often are going to be small songbirds, you know, robins and sparrows and woodpeckers, as well as, you know, squirrels. We have fox squirrels and we have gray squirrels in Illinois. We have, of course, lots of rabbits. But a lot of things that you might not see as often are animals like opossums, raccoons. We have mink. We have bobcats. We have otters. We have beavers, which are amazing. And then we have quite a lot of raptor species. We have a huge variety of raptors. We have, of course, red-tailed hawks, like Odin behind us. I don't know if you can see them, but we have small kestrels. We also have quite a number of bald eagles in Illinois, which I think people don't realize. Just in the wildlife clinic since January, we've gotten a dozen eagles in our clinic, and so they're definitely out there. And then we have a lot of herptiles. So that's things like turtles, lizards, snakes. We have amphibians like toads and bullfrogs. So we have a really diverse array of wildlife, and you don't always see them, but they are definitely there.
Right. Why are more and more animals kind of migrating or getting into the urban areas? I guess the easy answer, cities are kind of sprawling out and they're overtaking their homes, but there's probably more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways you are correct. We maybe should flip that around and say, why are there so many humans in wildlife spaces, right?
Right.
So you know, we are in their home as well, but in urban spaces, there's a lot of species that can thrive in our spaces because we provide them access to food sources, whether that be pet food or trash that's not secured. They can find shelter in our buildings and under our buildings, things like that. And so animals like raccoons, opossums,
Groundhogs.
squirrels, groundhogs, and even a lot of our songbirds and the Cooper's hawks that predate on the songbirds, they can really thrive in urban spaces, and they adapt readily to some of the pressures that we can put on them.
Let's talk about some of those species, probably the ones that are, and when I say nuisance, I say it very lovingly, but some of the ones that a lot of folks in the country might experience the most. One being a raccoon. They're known as the engineer. Their little paws, they can get in and get stuff, and then they can scurry off without being seen, but then they can also do some damage. So let's talk about the raccoon.
Yes, and raccoons can also pass on diseases to you and your pets that you don't necessarily want to have. And so we encourage people not to interact too much with raccoons and not to engage them and encourage them to kind of come into human and domestic animal spaces because of those diseases. So we encourage people not to feed them and also not to feed feral cats, because even if you're intending to feed feral cats, it's inevitably, you're leaving food out, it's inevitably going to attract lots of raccoon pests as well, raccoon friends,
right.
I should say, and that can be hazardous to those cats too that you're trying to take care of. And also make sure that your trash is secure, that if you have dumpsters that you secure the lids shut. If you have any like spaces under decks and things like that they might like to nest under, that you make those inhospitable or inaccessible to raccoons.
What about coyotes? More and more we hear about coyotes being in urban areas and cities. How do we coexist with them?
Yeah, so coyotes are actually super skittish. A lot of people don't realize that. For the most part, they're very fearful of humans and human activity, and so they will do their best to stay away from you. But the same kind of things apply, that we don't want to encourage feeding the coyotes, because we don't want them to rely on human food sources, and we don't want them to come into our spaces with our domestic animals. And so again, not leaving food out for domestic animals or and securing your trash is really important for them as well, but also to protect your small pets. So not letting your cat roam outdoors. They can definitely be susceptible to coyote attacks. Small dogs, especially if you're walking your small dog at nighttime, make sure that they're on a leash and that you are close by them, so that a coyote is not going to want to come near you. But if your dog is 50 feet out in front of you, they might be a little bit braver, right? So we want to make sure we protect our pets. But for the most part, they don't want to interact with us. They're largely non-aggressive. So as long as we don't encourage them interacting with us and coming closer to our spaces, they, for the most part, leave us alone. We definitely don't want anyone hunting coyotes. That's actually been shown to affect the social structure of the coyotes, and can lead to more coyote pups being born and actually increase the coyote population. So there's been studies that show that it's actually ineffective. So it's really best. They're actually great for the ecosystem. They manage a lot of their prey species populations and have a really huge impact on the ecosystem in a positive way. So we want to kind of let them
do their thing
uninterrupted. Yeah.
What causes the biggest conflict between humans and wildlife?
I think it's it's a little bit of everything that we do. It's a lot of the animals that come to the wildlife medical clinic have been negatively affected by humans in some way, and so a lot of times they've been hit by car, they've been caught by cat, they may have fallen sick to a toxin that we put in the environment. And so I think these are a lot of the things that we see animals affected by, and for humans, it's often animals coming into their space, and a lot of times there's things that we can do to prevent that, right? Like we can make sure our houses are rodent proof, right? That we kind of fill in all the gaps and things so that they can't get into our house, and that we
outbuildings, that sort of thing.
We do things that kind of seal off our spaces so that they can't get in there and can't be nuisances, and then so we don't use things that are negatively going to impact the environment, like poisons and glue traps and things like that.
If I see, and like I said, I live in the country, if I see an animal that's injured, or I see a fawn or kits or other animals that I think, oh, I don't see a mommy around, what do I need to do? What's the best advice that you could give to homeowners when they do encounter wildlife? I mean, I'm definitely not an expert like you are, so there's probably some things that I need to take into consideration.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the most important thing for people to do is call their local wildlife rehabilitator, because the best thing to do is going to change depending on the species that they encounter. So in Illinois, people can go on wildlifeillinois.org, so .org, and that will bring you to the Illinois Department of Natural Resources website, and they have a link that says find help for injured or orphaned wildlife and find a wildlife rehabilitator. And so you can pull up a list and a map and find the wildlife rehabilitator that's closest to you. And so they can give you situation-specific advice for the animal that you encountered. For specific animals that we commonly get calls for, like fawns, for example. So fawns, this is a time of year they're being born, and when they're really young, they are not with their mom all the time. And people don't realize that the doe actually tucks them away. They'll be kind of curled up in a little ball, kind of like when your cat and dog are sleeping in the grass somewhere, and mom will be close by, but she sometimes won't be visible. And so if that baby is kind of sleeping quietly tucked, and they seem calm, they don't have any obvious injuries, you can actually just leave that baby alone, and mom will be back. She only comes back a few times a day to nurse her fawn. She will sometimes move them around a bit, but they may be there for a day or more in that spot. If you see a fawn that is wandering around and it's screaming and crying, sometimes they'll do that when they've lost their mom and they're getting hungry a lot of times. That could be a sign that that animal is in distress and is truly orphaned. But 99% of the time, the calls that we get about fawns is they're not actually truly orphaned. And so we don't want to kidnap them, right? We want to make sure that the baby is still there when mom goes back to find them. The same goes for baby cottontails. So we have eastern cottontails in Illinois. I'm sure you've seen them. They're super cute. They just have little shallow nests in the ground. And a lot of times people come across them. They're well hidden. They're just in a little scoop out in the ground. They often have grass, and mom will sometimes pull out her fur to kind of put on top of them and keep them warm and covered. But she only feeds them twice a day. She only feeds them usually at dawn and dusk. And so that's so that she doesn't attract predators to her nest. And so most of the time she's gone, she's out of sight, and people will come across these bunnies and say, oh no, they're orphaned, and they actually are not. And so some things that you can do to find out if they're truly orphaned is you can kind of arrange ribbon or like even flour around the outside of the nest. And if you wait until the next morning or later in that evening, and you can see if that's been disturbed, and then that can show you that mom is she's coming back and she's taking care of her babies. A lot of people are worried about their dogs getting into those bunny nests, and so we have a solution for that as well. And so what you can do is get a laundry basket and cut out a hole along the side. Just has to be maybe like 6 to 8 inches in diameter, just enough for mom to get in there. And you can flip that laundry basket upside down, put it on top of the nest. You can put something heavy like a couple bricks or something to weigh it down. And now the bunnies are protected from any your dogs, but mom can still get in there and access her baby. So we want to do what we can to to keep them with mom, because she can do a lot better job than us or even the best wildlife rehabilitator in the world can do raising her baby. So we want to keep them with mom as much as possible.
Do you recommend humans, if they do see something, an animal that's injured, actually physically bringing them in themselves? I'm sure that's happened, but there's also probably a little bit of risk there, because if somebody's not trained, they could harm themselves.
For sure. The vast majority of animals actually come to us directly from the public. So we can, if you call a wildlife rehabilitator, we can kind of give you step-by-step instructions on how to safely capture and transport that animal. And so a lot of times we do get them from the public. There are certain instances where we do not want the public engaging with that animal, especially raccoons can be very dangerous, and so we will often refer people to their local animal control. And so a lot of animal controls will assist with wildlife removal. If you do encounter something that's sick or injured, they can come and trap it for you, and let the professionals do their work. Most wildlife rehabilitation centers were volunteer-based organizations, or chronically understaffed, and so a lot of them don't have the resources to go out and fetch animals themselves and capture them. Every once in a while we will, but for the most part we rely on those animal control officers and the public to capture those animals. And so for protection, we definitely recommend always wearing gloves with wildlife, especially if you're working with a hawk or a squirrel, something that can bite or talon you and injure you, right? So we want to make sure people are using proper protection if they're doing that. So things like welding gloves can be super helpful. That's something that people might have in their home. A lot of times people can also just if the animal is that injured that they're letting you pick them up and approach them, sometimes you can even just put a box or a crate next to the animal and then get something like a broom to gently kind of sweep them and scoop them into that carrier and bring them in. So sometimes you can be very hands-off and protect yourselves, but also safely capture the animal.
In our last couple of minutes, I think we need to shine the light on some of our ambassadors. We're here at the Wildlife Clinic at the University of Illinois, and it's a beautiful facility. And so share with us in our last couple of minutes who our friends are behind us.
Sure. So all of our ambassador animals are animals that have presented to the Wildlife Medical Clinic, or sometimes other local wildlife rehabilitators that have an injury or something wrong with their behavior. A lot of times, some of our animals, like Clover or American Kestrel, they may have been inappropriately habituated or imprinted on humans. And so if that happens, we can't safely release those animals because they won't know how to fend for themselves in the wild. And so, or they may have had an injury that made them not releasable. And so we can keep them in our clinic here, and they can serve as ambassadors of their species and educate the public and school children and lots of people and lots of students on how to best protect our environment, how to coexist right with our environment, and really do a lot of good here. And so right behind us is Odin, is our male red-tailed hawk. He's actually been with us since 1997, so he is quite.
He's an old guy.
Old, yes. That's very old. We love having him here. He actually came to us at that time as a first-year bird, and so a lot of times first-year raptors struggle to feed themselves, and so he was not doing so well. He was very skinny. He was very dehydrated, and so he was so dehydrated that they couldn't place an intravenous catheter in him, and so he had placed a catheter into one of his bones, which is actually directly continuous with their venous system, and so that's how he got fluids. They saved his life that way, but unfortunately he developed a complication, an infection there that causes him some pain and some arthritis and lack of range of motion in those joints. And so he was not able to be released because of that, sadly. But he's lived a wonderful, happy
going
life
strong in his
here.
enclosure.
Yeah. Yes, and he's taught a lot of people about red-tailed hawks and raptors in Illinois.
And you have taught us a lot about coexisting with wildlife. So, Dr. Stephany Lewis, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting myself and our crew to your wonderful facility again here at the University of Illinois. We've learned a lot. And best of luck to you in your relatively new position as the director here at the Wildlife Clinic.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us for this
Thank you.
episode.
Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely, and thank you, our viewers of the Paw Report, for joining us for this On the Road episode at the University of Illinois, the Wildlife Veterinary Clinic. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
The Castle in Mattoon, Illinois, a gaming bar serving the Mattoon area since 1929. Full bar, draft beer, allocated bourbons, rotating daily specials, APA pool leagues, darts, and more. Monthly craft cocktail nights, open mic nights, and karaoke weekly. The Castle's lineup of concerts and events are on their Facebook.